Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to our session today. We are very, very excited to jointly share with you a little bit more about the Parcel Perform services. And there's no better way than actually hearing it directly from the retailers. So very warm welcome also from my side to Karsten from Mister Spex today. We will have a joint presentation. Hi, Karsten.
Hi, Dana. Thanks for having me. My name is Karsten. I'm head of supply chain with Mister Spex.
Amazing. Yeah, Karsten, I think the two of us have been talking for quite a while already. You've been with Parcel Perform and a customer for over a year. Maybe just for everyone listening in, first of all, of course, thanks for taking the time, but also to give you a bit of a feeling of what we want to talk about today. Mister Spex obviously operating throughout Europe in quite a complex setup. Karsten will share a little bit more insight with us shortly, also talking about the omnichannel approach. But you back then made a choice, Karsten, to work with Parcel Perform to improve your customers' delivery experience, but also to kind of have more visibility for your internal stakeholders, such as your logistics management teams, but of course also customer service. Is that right, Karsten?
That's correct, absolutely. So we had quite some need to get basically transparency in all our shipments and to enable both customer service and also operations department in their daily business and basically get the view on each and every parcel, which now is possible. It's been a long way, a long journey, but now we are having a lot of value add for our customers and work very, very well on a daily basis.
Thanks, Karsten. Yeah, maybe just for everyone listening in, I'm sure everyone knows Mister Spex already. I'm wearing glasses, just like probably many of you dialing in. But Karsten, maybe I hand it over to you first, just to kind of give us a few more insights on the exciting business growth that you've seen over the last few years.
Yes, I will. So we position ourselves as a leading digitally native omnichannel optical brand in Europe. We are close to 200 million revenue, strong growth, around 80 to 20%. We have a large assortment on stock, more than 100 brands such as Boss, Ray-Ban, Tom Ford, and so on, with more than 10,000 SKUs on stock. But also we have our own brands where we work collaboratively with designers such as Michalski, for example, and we offer that to our customers. Of course, the high margin prescription glasses, that's our core. Around 60% of growth the last years, more than 2 million orders. And of course, as we are an omnichannel business, we have around 60 stores, most of them in Germany, but also in Austria, Switzerland, and also in Sweden. Online and offline, altogether, we have more than 5.8 million active customers. 42 million online visits. That was actually 2 years ago, so it could be a bit more now. And we have aided brand awareness, which means our online shoppers are between 18 and around 60 years. That's a little bit on our business. Maybe you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, really cool to kind of see your growth. I think what we also see here on the slide, we are both based in Berlin, which is where you operate your HQ. But I believe you ship from Berlin really all over Europe with more than 10 countries. I think that's the one really impressive thing to see. And at the same time, you also mentioned you're combining online and offline retail. Can you share a little bit more about that secret to your success, Karsten?
Yes, our omnichannel model is basically our core. So we have done a lot of investments into our innovative digital toolkit such as 2D and 3D virtual try-ons, for example, that a customer can do on their computer at home. Then they can order in our assortment and order a home trial up to 4 different glasses, which they can then try on and decide for a pair of new glasses. We also order online eye exam, so quite a lot of tools online. Also, they can shop online, but also on the other side, our offline business. We have, as I mentioned already, more than 60 stores. We have a store concept that really multiplies quickly. So it has a award-winning design. So we had quite some prizes 2 years ago. We have an open shelf, and glasses are easy to select there. It's a bright and a nice store concept. We have the latest technology on Mister Spex eye exams. And we are also trying to educate our customers in the store to basically buy glasses. They can return glasses back to the store or send them back via parcel. If they order glasses, they can pick them up in store or let them deliver by parcel. So we are trying to combine both worlds and create synergies across the two channels.
Yeah, that's super impressive. I mean, obviously, you're really optimizing for convenience with the customers, for making it intuitive. At the same time, I can imagine that also leads to quite a lot of complexity for you and your team when it comes to logistics operations. Karsten, can you also talk us a little bit on the logistics setup that you've chosen and that you're kind of continuously scaling up here?
Yeah, so to be able to serve our customers the best way possible, also online and offline, we need to have a strong logistics backbone, of course, as you can imagine. So we have a logistics hub in Berlin with more than 10,000 square meters. We have an in-house edging and mounting lab. And our contact lenses logistics is fully automated. If we run at full speed, we can serve up to 20,000 orders per day and ship them out. Most of them are shipped within even 1 day. So from order entry to shipped quite fast. And of course, what happens after then on the last mile, this is also, of course, challenging. We are working together with a lot of last mile carriers. Some of them are here on that slide. Most of them you will probably know, DHL, Hermes, but also Royal Mail in UK, for example. We are shipping to 10 main countries, basically Germany, which also have the most stores. Then to Austria and Switzerland. UK is quite a big and also challenging market when it comes to lead times. And then Netherlands, Belgium, France. Also one of our core markets. Sweden is also special because we have 2 warehouses, small warehouses there as well. One in Stockholm and one in Kolmsund. Which is also a different entity for lenses in Norway, but we are also shipping to Finland and Norway as well. We also ship to other countries which are rather small, I would say. What makes it so special? Logistics management. It's basically reacting to customers with more questions. So where's my order? Typical questions for the customer service. And to be able to answer to these questions, you really must have real-time transparency on shipments. You have to be able to filter and look for each and every single shipment and try to find out if there are any delays. Also, we have different last mile carriers that you need to manage on a daily basis. It's logistics. Things go wrong. There are delays. There are weather conditions, strikes, and so on. And you have to be able to react fast, and therefore, you also need transparency on the way, along the way. Until the customer gets his parcel. And one thing which I'm really proud of, and it took a while, but it's one of our core functionalities. I think, Dana, you will explain a little bit later. It's we are now able to proactively react to delays along the shipment, which means whenever there are delays within the transit time, our customers get automated notifications to inform them that the parcel will take a little bit longer, and then that we are working closely together with the last mile carriers to fix any kind of issues that are along the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks so much for sharing, Karsten. I think really impressive on how you're keeping it all together. And you also said it, right? On the one hand, it's about transparency about what's happening. But on the other hand, if you truly want to take the step towards convenience and intuitiveness to your customer, you better know before something happens or at the time something happens, even though the carrier doesn't let you know. But to be then proactive towards your clients can go a very long way and help you save some real costs on customer service and the logistics side. And yeah, if you allow me, that's also what we're at Parcel Perform all about. So let me just quickly, for everyone that might not have seen us in the market yet, give you an overview. We started Parcel Perform 7 years ago, and we really believe every order counts. So from the moment of checkout to all the track and trace that you kind of intuitively want to display to your customers, to getting your customers back on your website to drive upselling, but then of course also for all processes that happen internally, just as Karsten mentioned on the customer service side on the logistics management side, until the return. We believe that there we need to give as much visibility as possible, and then of course utilize this data in order to allow all retailers and marketplaces to work with it. And yeah, today we talk about you and Mister Spex, Karsten. Of course, there's also a lot of other brands that we're working with and marketplaces, so whoever is shipping parcels and needs that visibility. And how do we do it? I think one key thing is we always want to cover 100% of the volume that our clients are commanding. So very important that we integrate all the carriers. And then as we get the data in, we need to standardize it and not kind of do it case by case, but to really do it at scale. So at the moment, we're processing more than 100 million parcel updates on a daily basis. So quite a lot of data that we're getting, and then standardizing all these events that come from the carriers back to 155 different standard events, and then translate all this also, of course, into by now 36 different languages. I think Mister Spex is live in 10 markets, so we make sure that also the end consumer then gets a very personalized experience there. And I think what we want to do today is to give everyone a really practical example of how different departments can then actually utilize the data. And I think we just put together a little bit of an overview here. Generally, our Parcel Perform services, they of course can already start at checkout. From the moment that someone wants to check out, wants to know by when would this parcel then be delivered, to basically anything that happens through the delivery journey, updating your customers on your web shop and with kind of white labeled email notifications on when their parcels arrive. Obviously, these notifications should be sent by the retailer to build trust, but also to drive upselling, as these delivery notifications generally have very, very high opening rates. To then also making sure that I think many of you probably get a lot of service inquiries. Where's my order? Karsten also mentioned it, for up to 50% if we look at the average across the retailers that we're working with. And to drive down the cost, the best way is to kind of stop the customer from having to call in the first place. And that's where proactiveness on communication really comes into play to make sure that you get a lot less inquiries, but if you get them, also to be able to answer them. And I think we built some really cool dashboards that we're going to show from Mister Spex as well. And then last but not least, of course, it's all about logistics management. So making sure, Karsten, you and your team can go back to the carriers, look at the actual performance, not just at the dashboards that come from the carrier that are hard to compare, but actually at your very specific data to then kind of talk to them and drive optimizations. To the very last step, I think a very exciting project that we're currently also working on and in the planning is the rollout of returns, making returns a lot more intuitive and sustainable for customers. So all that kind of covered in your service range. And I think many of these components are already live with Mister Spex. So let's kind of take a look at that, Karsten, and jointly give a few examples of how we're handling it. I think it all starts with carrier coverage, right? And Karsten, I think you have quite a lot of outbound parcels, but also line hauls and a sustainable amount of returns. So what we try to make sure is that all the carriers that you mentioned, we are, of course, covering with our solution. So no matter what you send out, we have the track and trace data that the carriers are having in a nicely standardized form available for us to work with that data. Karsten, can you just talk us a little bit more through how you select those carriers and maybe also how you differentiate between outbound and returns?
Yeah, so we are trying to serve the market the best as possible. So with a high delivery quality and short lead times. So yeah, we are negotiating with carriers on a yearly or bi-weekly, bi-yearly yeah, rhythm. Trying to find the best carriers on the market. Also, for example, for the Nordics, Post Nord, we are working with Post Sweden, and yeah, soll ich den Faden verloren? So there are a lot of different carriers that we are using here. We are tracking as well outbound and also return parcels because the return journey is yeah also very important to manage because when customers get their home trial parcel and within a certain time their account will be released again. So it's very important that the return arrives in our warehouse as quickly as possible. So we have to be managing the return journey as well. And we are doing that almost on a daily basis, yeah, with Parcel Perform.
Thanks, Karsten. And I think probably some of those that are listening have ordered a Mister Spex parcel before. So let's maybe start a little bit talking about the experience that we're giving to your customers. Obviously, very important. And I think that was one of your ambitions, to avoid the customer having to go to the carrier website, but basically being able to come back into your web store. And for this, what we can see here on the slide is we put up one example. This is, I think, for the Swedish market of how customers can actually view their parcel updates. And Karsten, if I'm correct, this links back into actually your website across all the 10 different markets that we have rolled out, right?
Yes, exactly. So we are having this tracking page for almost all our countries and all our markets that we are using. So the customers are rerouted back to that tracking page once they receive their email notification. It's in our brand. So they can directly jump into our shop again for shopping. So it's a good kind of way of displaying where the parcel is, so they get their latest updates, and it's in our brand.
Yeah, no, and I think the cool thing is that this also allows us to really personalize this into the language of your customer. So we might be looking at Sweden right now, and it's an English version, but this also exists in Swedish and all the other languages that your customers are receiving the parcels in. I think especially in an operational setup like yourself, Karsten, where you actually have a lot of shipments coming from the Berlin warehouse and then going into other markets. This allows you to really kind of personalize the experience and make it very intuitive in the customer's language.
Yes, exactly. So this is really what our customers appreciate. We can see that when we look at the opening rates of this tracking page. So our customers really appreciate having this kind of information in their language, real time, and that's really cool, and also helps to inform our customers real time. So at least there are some less customer calls about the location of their parcels.
Yeah, exactly. And some might be wondering now, how does the customer get there? I think on the one hand, they can just come to your website and look, for example, in the account summary page, and then they would see this widget embedded. But I think another thing that we rolled out for you that I think has been very successful is the delivery notifications. So instead of the carriers informing your customers, you are now the ones that give your clients an intuitive update on what's the status of an order. And I think we have also rolled this out across 10 different markets in 10 different languages. And clicking on this would then link back to the tracking widget. So if a customer gets an email notification and they want to see more information, then they can, of course, go to the tracking page on your website to then kind of see the full delivery journey. But I think, Karsten, what we also did, and I think that was really smart on your end, we set up a lot of different triggers for these notifications, right? On the Parcel Perform side, we have more than 50 kind of standard triggers that we can use. But in your case, I believe we also rolled out kind of delay and proactive notifications if something goes wrong.
Yeah, as I just mentioned before, this is one of our most valuable notifications that we have to inform customers proactively about any kind of delay along the way. So, for example, if we ship to UK, we are using a line haul carrier, and the parcel takes approximately 2 days before it is injected in the Royal Mail hub. So if something goes wrong along the way to that Royal Mail hub, and there's any kind of delay within a certain time frame, customers get an automated notification, which we also defined and explaining the customer in our language or in their language why their parcel is delayed and what we are doing to be as fast as possible, and then that we are really working on the problem. And this customized notification, that's the thing which is really helpful.
Yeah, and the really nice thing also to make this even more intuitive, I think what you set up is you don't just have the trigger to send out an email notification, but if this arises, even though the carrier hasn't given any update about this, the client can then also see it on the tracking widget and sees like a little statement there saying, you know, it takes a little longer than expected, but don't worry, we're on top of it. So that in return then helps to reduce the amount of inquiries you probably get on the customer service side as well.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we were forced to be aware of these delays and then send out notifications, create these notifications upfront on a manual way. And now we have predefined SLAs for the line haul and also for the last mile. And now we are not anymore in the position to look for these shipments if they are delayed, but they are just sent out proactively, which saves a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we are not surprised when customers are calling because their parcels are delayed, and we don't know why.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good, because that avoids all the manual intervention that you have to do, and we just set it up automatically. Karsten, you also just mentioned what happens if a customer still calls. I believe you have basically on the one hand set up our customer service toolkit here to not just filter for certain parcels, so for example also to filter which parcels were delayed, just to see which customer got a notification. But if you kind of want to investigate a certain parcel, you can also go in here and look it up. Can you just describe a little bit more on the process on your end for this one?
Yeah, so our customer service is also equipped with Parcel Perform and with special reports. So every kind of data point that we are sending to the Parcel Perform platform can be displayed. So for each and every shipment, we know the recipient of the parcel. We know what kind of parcel we have, which last mile carrier we are using, the weight. So our customer service agents have a lot of information on each and every shipment, which they can filter for example, order ID and also tracking ID. They can also create reports and filters for specific lines, for example, or countries or carriers, which they need to observe, because from time to time there are delays more likely than with other carriers. So they have a lot of functionalities in the tool to be able to react to questions and calls from customers.
Yeah, thank you, Karsten. I think that's pretty helpful also for everyone to get some context, right? On the one hand, what we're trying to do is, in case someone calls, you can very quickly search, can also be a customer name, the order number, just like Karsten mentioned. So within one order, in case you have like multiple shipments there, your customer service would be able to see that immediately. But at the same time, we might want to actually investigate some issues. And what we do is, due to the standardization of carrier events, we could quickly search for an active issue, so something that has not yet been resolved, that is not in the past, that stops the parcel from being delivered. And this could be something like, obviously, either a parcel got lost or is damaged, but could also just be the wrong address. So we standardized all the different issue codes that we get from the carrier for you to then be able to view it. But we also define pretty intuitive rules for us to measure against, for example, for your line haul. So then you can also filter parcels that are in breach of a certain rule to be able to investigate, even though the carrier hasn't given you an update on this one yet. Awesome. Thank you, Karsten, for sharing. I think probably the view that you see the most together with your team is probably our logistics report. So what we've done here is we really wanted to make sure that in real time, you are able to view the performance of your carriers in a comparable manner, right? We probably all know carriers are giving you their own reports, but you need to look at separate platforms. They all have their different KPIs that they defined there. So what we did in Parcel Perform is putting together a variety of different charts to look into kind of certain performance KPIs. Karsten, can you talk us through a few of the reports that you might be using here, or how you're using it for your business?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, of course, these dashboards are pretty much in use in my department. So we have to be aware of any kind of issue or delay, or even the number of shipments per day. So we have created some really useful dashboards here. In my case, per carrier. So we are looking especially at the number of parcels that were shipped on a day. Also, we are looking at lead times very often to see if everything runs smoothly. Also, with the help of the predefined SLAs, we have to, of course, have to look at delays on a daily basis. So with these dashboards, we know if something is wrong with the injection in other countries, for example, and then we can react very fast. So it's a tool which is really helpful on a daily basis, but also on a monthly basis when it comes to the big numbers like parcel ship, for example.
Cool, Karsten. I think, yeah, really interesting that you're using this also on a daily level for your internal performance recording. I think, on the other hand, when we spoke about this, not all issues are always reported by the carriers, but sometimes you've got to kind of define your own rules based on the SLAs you either defined for yourself as a business or you defined to manage the carriers that you're working with. And I think for this, you're utilizing our comply module. Is that right, Karsten?
Yes, that's the comply module for SLAs, which we have predefined to measure certain points per country. So from shipped to first injection hub, for example, with a specific number of hours until a parcel needs to be injected. This can be different per country or per carrier. So we have different dashboards for example, for delays in the line haul.
Yeah, and I think that's also really cool to what we mentioned earlier, combining this together with the notification that you send to your customers. I think because you defined different SLAs, one for the line haul first, which then can already give notifications to your end consumer about a potential delay, but then also for last mile, that obviously gives you quite a lot of insights that probably the carrier would usually not give you, but also helps you with a promise that you can give to customers that your e-commerce teams are ultimately working with, right?
Yes, and this, just to give you an example, makes totally sense. For example, in UK, where we have really strong expectations when it comes to lead times. So a day of lead time delay is can be an NPS drop, a significant NPS drop. And customers are calling and complaining and asking where the parcel is. So having this SLA triggered notification in place where we can pre-inform customers in UK upfront about a delay, and that we are working to fix this issue is really helpful.
Yeah, and I think building on that, maybe just to give everyone, so to say, like a final end-to-end glimpse of the delivery experience at Mister Spex. I think we just quickly put together this slide because I think what you've done there is really impressive. Your customer after checkout gets a delivery notification, I think, from your system just to inform them that, hey, we received your order. But then as soon as we kind of start progressing in the warehouse, then have your line haul, then have delivery, but also returns. I think you combine different modules on our side, different licenses with each other. So on the one hand, we are measuring SLA rules, line haul, last mile, and kind of have that visibility in place for you internally. But then we also combine this with the notifications that you're sending to your customers to kind of make sure that you're proactive. And then all these events obviously are not just part of the notification triggers, but they're also part of the tracking page. So it truly is quite a unique experience that you're providing that to your customer across all the markets, Karsten.
Yes, I mean we're talking about two kind of journeys along the parcel journey. One is the positive notification journey, telling the customer that everything runs fine. Parcels got hand over to the last mile carriers, or will be delivered the next day, and so on, or is delivered. And the other one is a notification journey when it comes to issues or delays, or could not be delivered, for example. So with both of them, we can make sure that our customers get informed all the time, the best way possible.
Yeah, perfect. And I think with that, Mister Spex is truly setting an example, combining the data that you have internally with the data that your carriers give you in a standardized manner so you can actually analyze it, but then building rules on top of that to truly make sure that the customers get an intuitive delivery update and a journey that is fully in your UI, fully branded and yet personalized to the respective market. Really amazing job that you have done there together with the team, Karsten. And we very, very much enjoy working on this with you and kind of also looking at rolling out a lot of additional kind of modules and licenses over the next few weeks and months to come. For anyone that wants to have more insights, I'm sure, Karsten, you would probably be open for anyone reaching out to you, if that is all right.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I just wanted to add one thing. It's been a great journey. It's a great partnership, and we worked on this together. Very in a very agile way, I would say. So there were a lot of requirements from our side, which were quite specific. But your team managed to build that, to test it, to roll it out, and to really to make us happy on along that path, and that was really helpful. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karsten. So for anyone that wants to test it out, we also offer free demos. We can even do a try with your data. So feel free to also reach out to myself. You can find us on LinkedIn, and of course, on our website, or if you have a phone ready in your hand, simply scan this QR code, and we would really very much look forward to hearing from you. But for now, once more, huge thank you to the Mister Spex team for working with us, and Karsten, of course, for joining today's presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you too.